Dedicated to my people, black people in every hood and every city. May we always rise together.
Of the structure of Tendea, because I think that as somebody who, like yourself, is a student of Black history and American history, and just kind of like the intersection of how these movements have shaped our lived experiences, but also shaped what our future looks like. How did you guys structure Tendea and why? Because when I look at you guys, you know what I mean. Obviously, it's not the only comparison, but I think most people would think of the Black Panthers, in the 60s. I think that they would think of the self-sufficiency. I think that they would think of the resourcefulness that was displayed by a lot of our leaders during that time. And I think that you guys really emulate that from a contemporary perspective. So is that intentional?
Yeah, so Tendea Family, we don't see ourselves as a new thing.
Right.
We see ourselves as a continuation of struggles, continuity of struggle. And so we definitely are inspired by the Black Panther Party, we're definitely inspired by the UNIA and Marcus Garvey, we're definitely inspired by Malcolm X and the Nation of Islam and the organizations he created afterwards.
Absolutely.
We're inspired by all of those movements and organizations because we feel like they have lessons and things to tell us. And so every aspect of Tendea we take into account, from structure to how we do work, we take into account the lessons in history. And so when it comes to even like organizations like the UNIA with Marcus Garvey, he said, my mistake, you asked me, is that I first tried to change the world without changing the minds of men. And so we knew from that Garvey, though he had all these people, he didn't put the lessons and the things inside them so that the organization can live beyond him.
Absolutely.
With the LA Panthers, with Bunchy Carter, when Bunchy Carter was killed, a guy named Ronald Freeman said, yo, when they killed Bunchy, they killed the LA Panthers and we didn't know it yet. And so Tendea, we take the perspective that even though I speak most of the time in front of a camera, that we make sure that Tendea is in every member of Tendea Family.
Right. So
that it doesn't matter what I do or don't do, the organization lives on. And not just the organization, it's about the work living on.
Right.
It's embodied in every member and not just big eyes and little U's. Because I think—
hold up one second. I want to stay there for a minute because I think that that's important. The thing that most people miss, even when they look at history, is how we were kind of set back by the fact that so many of our movements were built around individuals. You know what I'm saying? If you look at the Black Panther Party as being embodied singularly by Huey P. Newton, then if you destroy Huey Newton, you destroy the party. You know what I mean? But when I think of the Black Panthers, I think of my heroes, Fred Hampton. You know what I mean? Like, in my mind, Huey was great, but Fred was the real revolutionary. He was the real forward thinker of the party. You know what I mean? Because he had that outside of the box perspective that really built the first Rainbow Coalition. That was truly a Rainbow Coalition at the time. You know, him understanding the necessity of being able to organize with the disenfranchised across the tracks.
That's right.
You know what I mean? That we typically wouldn't even interact with, but we have a shared struggle and we have a shared beef with the federal government. So why wouldn't we organize? Why wouldn't we make sure that we share certain points to make sure that it's understood nationally that this is something that needs to be addressed? You know, so I think that, like, what I love about you guys is not just how it's bigger than you, right? You know, you have a whole family, and I love the family component of it because so many of us don't look at each other as family anymore. But the thing that I love probably the most about you guys is how you center your women. You know what I mean? And I think that that's something that even when you look back at the Black Panther Party, I think that they dropped the ball on. You know what I mean? Because it was very patriarchal. You know what I mean? It was very authoritarian. It was very not anti-Black woman, but anti-woman in general. You know what I mean? Because it seemed the men as being the leaders when the women were the true heart and soul of the party. You know, so talk about that. Was that intentional? Is that something that was the result of study and examples of people that came before us that didn't necessarily get that part of how that struggle intersects.
That's intentional also, but also we have the benefit of having the Black Panther Party and these organizations as an example, as a model, as something we can reflect on. Because we actually don't even know we would be without that example. Because I do think when it comes to the Black Panthers, they tried. They did try to be different than their times, but they struggled and they abused and they harmed in ways, and in some ways it produced Black feminism because of what Black women went through inside the Black
I don't think
Panther
Angela
Party.
Davis is the true voice that she is if she didn't see some of the hypocrisy that was going on in other sections of the movement. So I definitely agree.
They were trying, but when it comes to Black women, this was something I think Asada said, that the Black woman's place is in the struggle. And we really believe that there is a place in the movement, there's a place in the role of progressing our people forward, that is not just men that's called to do that, but women are called to do it side by side with men. And they have to find their place, their skills, their talents, their role in that. And we have to, as men, allow them to have a place and not just, just put our chests out and say this is all about us as men. But I do think that centering women is really intentional in Tendea Family. And in a time like this, it could be really difficult. It could be really difficult just because it's just so much debate and things around gender.
Right.
And so I don't know how they're going to take the women in Tendea Family or the men in Tendea Family when they see us, because even if the women in Tendea Family are not oppressed, when you put men and women together, we're in a time where they're gonna project oppression on them.
Right.
Say, man,
But I think that that's where we also need to continue to be intentional about the type of environments that we create. Like the one thing I will say about you guys that I love is whenever I see you, whether it's an event or whether it's in community, you're creating and facilitating conversation based on what's best for us, based on bringing us together, based on what we should be doing in our communities as far as the relationships that we have with one another. And even though there are certain things that like I've seen that I might not always agree with, I love that the conversation is happening. Because we need to model what these conversations look like where it's not combative, where we genuinely just come together and say, what's best for us as a community? Is it this approach? Is it that approach?
That's right.
How do our relationships strengthen? You know what I mean? What should we as men be doing? What should our women be doing?
That's right.
And how does that factor into the collective good for all of us? You know what I mean? And I think that you have so many conversations that are just debates, that are just toxic, and you have a whole manosphere now on the internet where guys are just spewing just this anti-womanist, this really anti-black, you know what I mean, rhetoric. But that's getting the attention, it's getting the clicks, it's getting the likes. But I'm one of those people that genuinely believes that I don't care about the attention. I care about the intention of my actions. So we need to be able to have conversations like this to model for the people out there that are wondering, what should I do? What should this structure look like? You need rational Black men having conversations about what the pragmatic solutions are, to drown out all of the noise. You know what I mean? And I think that the only way to counter bad content is to make better content. You know what I mean? To show people that we don't have to argue to be on the same page. You know what I'm saying? We don't have to, or both of our voices and our perspectives can be heard while still loving and respecting one another. That's as Black men, that's with our relationships with our women, and people aren't seeing us have healthy discourse enough.
That's the truth. And
because they don't see it modeled, all they know to resort to is the ultra violent, the ultra aggressive. It's like, but as you get older and as you learn more and you see more, you're supposed to evolve. You're supposed to settle down a little bit. You're supposed to get the bird's eye view of things and not just what's right in front of your face. And I think that through actions, not words, we're finding ways of showing that to people.
That's right.
So sometimes you can't just worry about what everybody else is doing. Even to speak on that point that you said earlier, don't worry about how y'all look to other people when y'all come in. Y'all know the principles that you're building this movement around. y'all know the standards that you have for yourselves, and you're a beautiful reflection of us. So it don't matter where y'all at. You know what I mean? Like, if they don't like it, so what? You know what I'm saying? But I think that one of our biggest problems is like we measure our progress by like white America standards. And it's like, that's never been good for us. We need to figure out how our community can be whole from the inside. So how can we get in our rec centers? How can we get in our churches? How can we get in our schools? And actually figure out, how do our students learn best? You know what I mean? How is our community best served? And then we find ways of addressing that ourselves. And then when we do a good job of that, you know what I mean? The support starts to come. You know, now we've had this rec center for like 2 years now, like doing this work, keeping our heads down, focusing on what's right in front of us. And now there are finally people coming to the table that are willing to invest and willing to partner. And now we're gonna expand on that. But like, I don't think that happens if we're not addressing it ourselves. Like, nobody's gonna drop in and just bestow this benevolence on us for no reason. It's like, that's not how the world works. But you guys are an amazing example of what it looks like to say, all right, even if it's just picking up trash, you know what I mean? Like, let's show our community how to take pride in where we come from.
Yeah, I think one of the great things about Tendea though is that, and I think it's one of the differences between us and the Black Panther Party, is that the Black Panther Party, they were revolting against a system. For us, we're focused on building a system. We're focused on building a community. We're focused on building values, building norms, building shared beliefs to combat all of that. So it's a different approach. For them, it was like, yo, we gotta break down, and then from the ashes, we'll build something.
Right.
And for Tendea, it's like, you know, like you said, it's forget white standards, forget white values, forget comparing ourselves to that. What are the values, the beliefs, the norms that are beneficial to us as a people? And let's act those out.
Right. Like, what sustained us for thousands of years before we adopted these American standards? And then, all right, how do we practice that within this system?
Yeah.
I think that's a
And just even if you don't know all the history in the world, because even Tendea, it's people in Tendea, it's people outside of Tendea that will know more about Black history or African history way more than anybody in Tendea ever will. But it's like, some things is like, yo, it's me, you step on my shoes, and I go pick up a gun to settle that conflict between us as Black men. Is that beneficial to our community or not? Right. When one of us go to jail, when another goes to prison, and two families hurt and destroyed, like, is that beneficial to us? And so for us, we deal with those situations real practically and say, out of that comes being on code, comes a rule, comes a code, that this is how we abide. Not like, this is how some of us abide. It's like, no, this is how we abide, and all of us hold accountable. We all hold each other accountable to abide by that.
That's a good question that I have for you, actually, because one of the things that I've always seen and heard in discourse, not just with you, but other people as well, is when people talk about the how, right? How do you enforce certain standards within community? You know what I mean? If we're not leaning on police for certain things, if we're not turning to the government and saying, we want you to address this for us, when we're building this community model of accountability, just to you, what does that look like? You know what I mean? And how do we build that intentionally within community in a way that is sustainable?
I think it first of all comes through unity. I think you have to, and this is part of what Tendea was formed for, you have to get people and organize people and unify with people that are willing to say, I'm willing to make the sacrifices to abide by a code that's beneficial to us as a people. And as you get more numbers, more men, more women, more children, more elders that are abiding by that code, then the people that are left out that say, man, look, I don't care what none of y'all talking about, then we can have a conversation with those with the force of unity. But we try the individual approach, where it's like, I'm one person in the neighborhood where drug dealing is happening, where robbing is happening, where killing is happening, where rape is happening. And I'm gonna go to the corner and I'm gonna deal with it. And it's like, that's not sustainable, and it probably won't work. But when you got 30 brothers that live in that community that go to that corner and say, look, we willing to get you job training, we're willing to get you a job, we're willing to do this, we're willing to do that, We're willing to help whatever situation, we'll help you get off the drugs you on, but we're not allowing drugs in this community anymore. We'll help you with whatever, but that's not what we're doing. We ain't doing that here no more. Then you come with the force of unity and you come with that backing to be able to do that. And
Right.
then also, it don't even have to get violent because in these hoods, things are organized.
Right.
So you don't even talk to the little man and say,
Yeah.
yo,
You got the big homie
it's
over
such
top
and
of
such,
it.
yo,
Yeah.
because this can be resolved peacefully. And when you build a reputation as a group of people in the neighborhood, then they already have respect for you to know, man, oh man, y'all on some positive stuff. Y'all
Right.
been on some positive stuff. So I get the perspective in which y'all coming. But I think unity is how you establish norms and rules and values in a neighborhood. We all don't agree with stopping at red lights at 12 at night.
Right.
There ain't no traffic. But many of us, if a police car was behind you every time, many of us would stop at that red light, whether
Right.
we agree or don't agree. Is that you don't have to agree to abide by the rule. You just have to have a unified group of people that say, look, it's gonna be no other way in
Yeah.
this area. And they're willing to not harm, it's not about harming, it's that they're willing with the force of unity to say, yo, that ain't happening.
But that's where
Yeah.
I diverge, right? Because my opinion is that without the threat of some kind of accountable force, right, there will always be a subset of people that buck against the system, right? And I think that that's not just specifically with African Americans, that's not specifically with black folks all around the diaspora, that's just with people. People break the social contract every time. Like when you talk about red lights, it's like there are plenty of social contracts that people just objectively choose not to follow or address. So when we have that, and what I don't believe is that behavior is a pathology in our community. I think that it's just the result of human beings being in an imperfect world, living amongst each other, right?
Yeah.
But knowing that there still has to be some form of deterrent.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And where I believe is, I actually believe that the gang members on the corner do serve a purpose. I believe that if you reframe the thinking of these young brothers and that same militant attitude that they have towards the world, they can start to direct towards the real enemies and understand that, all right, we need to protect our own.
Yeah.
And sometimes that protection gets messy.
Yeah.
But if a man touches a woman in our community, you shouldn't be able to walk away from that unscathed. You know what I mean? If a man hurts a kid in our community, you shouldn't be able to walk away from that unscathed. There has to be some version of accountability that we have that goes beyond, all right, we just gonna drag you on social media, or we just gonna, you know what I mean? We're gonna give you a tongue lashing, or we gonna, I think that where we need to take the evolution of the movement to the next level is figuring out a framework of what that is supposed to look like. Because there are certain things, like if something happens in my house, right? Somebody walks into my house and disrespects, my kids, my lady, anything like that, it's my responsibility and obligation to make sure that they're protected and make sure that he knows that that's never something that you're gonna do. You know what I mean? How I go about doing that has to be mature, it has to be measured, you know what I mean? And it has to be thought through. But you can't just come into my house and do that and then walk out and everything's fine. And that's kind of where I find myself in those conversations, because I think a lot of people in our community are of that mindset, but that's an area that I don't think that we spent enough time connecting the dots on.
Yeah, I'm in a complete agreement. There's no disagreement with that. What I'm saying is, if you go to that corner and you explain all those things and people ain't budging, you budge them.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
But
what I'm trying to say is that that's the very last resort, because
Absolutely.
you know that we don't want this thing. But stop snitching is a rule, it's a value in our neighborhood.
Yeah.
Stop snitching is a rule of value. Everybody don't agree with it, but many people don't snitch because there are forces that will enforce that law and enforce that rule.
Right.
But what I'm saying is, you need a cadre, you need a group of people, you need organized men that are willing to say, these are the rules, I abide by the rules, and we now are going to try to get the community on board with these rules. But there's certain things like abusive women, like abusive elders, like abusive kids, that we just won't allow, and we're willing to harm and willing to die on that principle.
Right.
But it has to be righteous. It can't be ego involved. It can't be pride involved. It can't be the desire to hurt for the benefit of hurting.
Right.
It has to be from a righteous place so that you can really do what's in the best interest of the community. Because when you got a cadre of people that are willing to do that, sometimes you can start feeling your chest.
Absolutely. And I think that for us, it's got to be something that is simple but direct. You know what I mean? And the chapter that I have in Getting on Code, that kind of centers on this whole idea of just gang culture in general. Mm-hmm. Like, the whole premise is gang culture was never something to aspire to in our community, right? But there used to be rules around it. And because of the fact that there were rules, even though this was illicit activity that was looked down upon, even that activity contributed to the social fabric of that community. And it was because the rules were very simple. You know, we don't harm our elders. We don't harm our children. You know what I mean? We don't harm our women. And if there's a beef between us, we need to exercise all options before we resort, you know what I'm saying, to the violence. Yeah. You know, but one of the problems is, it's like when you have a war on drugs, right, that erases so many black men in our community that were in positions of authority to say, hey, don't shoot that person. Hey, don't take it there. Yo, we still family. Hey, we still have a shared community that we need to see rise. Hey, this business, we can't burn this, we can't steal from this. Yeah. This is a part of our infrastructure. But when all of those guys get locked up or killed in the middle of the drug war, you know what I'm saying? And all you have is kids running around, seeing these dudes get money their whole life, but not knowing any of these rules. Yeah. Then you have chaos. You have a problem. You have an apathetic generation of kids that don't even understand the social contract that they're betraying. You know what I mean? So how do we, and one of the things that's hard is, how do you normalize being a solid stand-up dude when that's no longer what people aspire to? People aspire to the toxic traits. People aspire to the capitalist-driven traits. People aspire to the selfish mentality and not the collective. Mm-hmm. But it's like, if we do that, how much of this work that we've provided for the world never gets done? You know what I mean? How many kids that we've touched and impacted never get exposed to another way of thinking? You know, how many people that we serve and that need that service, you know what I mean, have to look elsewhere, you know? Yeah. And the fact of the matter is, it's like, there's nobody coming to save us. So, you know, we can talk about politics, we can talk about legislative policy, we can talk about activism, but it's like, and I think you might agree with me on this, all of the leaders that I love, they didn't start up here. They started down there. Yeah. It starts at the street, it starts in the prisons, it starts in the schools. Yeah. I'm gonna build my army up of the common folk that everybody looks down on, because those are the people that truly change the mindset through action. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you get dudes to just start living a certain way, it's like, yo, we can normalize honoring our women. You know what I'm saying? Even when we don't want to. You know what I'm saying? Even when it's inconvenient, even when, you know, it's like, I think that I got a point here that can really, but it's like, are you just trying to be right? Are you trying to hurt this person? Or are you trying to bring us closer together? Yeah. That's a choice that we have to make. Yeah. If me and you have a disagreement and it gets violent, it gets physical, at a certain point, I have to make a choice to swing or to pull out the strap. You know, like, there are rules of engagement to this thing that we have to have a certain maturity and self-love and love of our people in our community, where me and you might disagree, but I love you. Yeah. So, yeah, we can disagree in private, in conversations like this, but once we go out that door, you my brother. I support everything that you're doing. Can't nobody talk bad about you. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I can talk about you some type of way to your face. Yeah. But I'm never gonna go out there in public and speak down on my brother when I know that we need to be a part of our own rescue together. That's right. You know, so I think that we're both kind of trying to figure out that algorithm. I think that we're all.
When it comes to the manhood thing and the way men behave, we have to create new definitions of manhood to combat the definitions of manhood that's out there. Yeah. Because money over everything, you know, bros before, all of that stuff is wrapped up in the definitions of manhood. Money over bees is wrapped up in the definition of manhood. And so when I was 11, 12, 10, I wanted to be a real nigga. And I had not an articulatable definition of that, but I had some form of what that meant, and I strived towards that. We in Tendea say that a real black man is a protector, provider, and a servant leader for self, family, and community. And we say that and have discussions in our Man to Man program around manhood is because if men adopt that definition, then they'll think about, what am I doing to protect my community? What am I doing to be a provider for my family, for my community? We talk about, even with the rec centers, everybody be like, man, they closed down the rec centers, man. What they doing with the rec centers?
How many we opening though?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
but we don't see it as our definition as men to provide. And say, yo, what our community needs, I'll organize with other men in this community to make it happen. But those definitions have to be put out there, has to be instilled in kids, and it has to be carried out in community. And the more numbers you have, the more cool it looks, because everybody gonna want to fit in. Especially if, yo, you got this building. For most people, man, you got a building, man, you successful. Like, you get into it, you know. The things that they aiming at, if they're showing another pathway that, yo, you can be this way, and you can get all the things that you are aiming at out there that are false and fake and superficial, and you're gonna have them today and they be gone tomorrow, you can get a house for your family. You can get a car that you can drive around in. You can get and wear clothes that are good and nice and people think you look good. You can get all of that without being out there destroying and being a negative part of your own community. So what I would say is that for us, is like definitions of manhood not only have to be created, they have to be instilled in people and carried out in a real fashion within community until it just become enforceable, where it's like, yo, you can choose to be another way, but you're just not a man.
But you gotta show, people have to see that, and it's like, until I met my mentor, Larry Poncho Brown, right? I never knew that a black man could live his whole life as an artist. You know what I'm saying? Not working for anybody, living on his own terms, doing his thing. Because I had never seen an example of what that looked like. But when he started showing me the blueprint, it's like, oh, this is something that I can do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I grew up seeing my father love on my mother unapologetically. You know what I mean? Yeah. Out in the open, and not just on my mother, but on me and my siblings. And my father's the type of person where we come from the type of family where when he showed love to his siblings, when I used to try to show love to my cousins, you know, they go on with that stuff. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're so uncomfortable showing and receiving love because that's never something that was ingrained into us as we developed. You know what I mean? So the biggest fight is really just normalizing through our behaviors. It's like we could talk until we blue in the face, but when a person sees how you treat your wife, you know what I mean? When a person sees how you treat your kids, when a person sees, even when you disagree with one of your brothers, like the way that you handle that disagreement, and the way that we still try to find a way to find each other, either if we're on completely different sides of the spectrum, even if we're just respecting each other enough to, you know, agree to disagree and respecting each other's opinion and that being that. The more of that you see, the more you understand that, oh, I can do this too. And not just I can do this, but it's probably a part of my social contract to be that guy and not the agitator and not the person that needs to dominate every conversation, the person that needs to, you can be strong in a room without being the loudest or, you know what I mean, the most braggadocious or all of that, but you have to see strong black men in that lane. You have to see families that interact with each other in that way. You have to see teachers that teach you with compassion and empathy and understanding and not just dictate at you, you know? And it's like, I think sometimes we don't recognize, at least in our own steps, how it's so hard because we're literally creating the blueprint for what that looks like. You know what I mean? Because most of the people that we got the game from, they were living on a different type of time. Like, their code was a little bit different. And it's like, we're trying to do our things now, again, learning from the mistakes of the past, realizing how much was accomplished on our behalf by our ancestors and by our predecessors, but where certain people fell short and where the connecting dots are that intersect us with one another, you know what I mean? And now that we're able to look at it, you know, in that hindsight perspective, how are the things that we're building gonna live past us? How are the things that we're creating going to outlast us? You know what I mean? How do we hand these things over to our children or to our mentees that we're developing, you know? And I think that that's something that we'll probably be doing for the rest of our lives, because I don't think you ever get to a point where it's just like, all right, we figured it out. You know what I mean? It's like, you never start learning. I'm always gonna read the books. You know what I mean? And then when they make the new books to talk about how those books were wrong, I'm gonna read those, you know? And that's the constant work, you know, as an advocate, as an activist, as a father, as a husband, like you never stop learning how to be better versions of those things.
Can I add one thing too? Is I think that one of the missing elements when it comes to the problems out there is the need for righteous brotherhood. And I think that gang culture is more natural than we would like it to be for young men. That when I was in middle school, elementary school, high school, it don't matter if you have father, not father, boys arrange themselves in groups. And so the reason
and you're looking for that acceptance too.
Yeah.
Like you looking for a tribe.
You're looking for a tribe.
For a family.
Yeah, you're looking for a family. And so even in Tendea Family, the reason why you'll see the brothers wearing burgundy with this symbol is because there's the Kobe brotherhood inside Tendea Family. So you need righteous brotherhoods where you're around a group of men that affirm you if you're displaying a healthy form of manhood that's beneficial to the community. But without that, you start looking for affirmation for doing the wrong things when you're around the wrong groups of people.
Absolutely.
But when brothers coming home from prison and coming home from jail, they not only need new sources of income and, you know, get themselves on their feet, they need a new community. They need a new brotherhood.
Because it's like I had a community before I went in, and it's like, yo, I don't want to go back to that.
And it was based
but I
on
still need a structure around me that affirms me. That's the thing that I
doing
think.
right.
Because it's like you're looking for that affirmation.
Yeah.
Sometimes you didn't have a father to give that to you, or you didn't have big brothers to give it to you. But when you get it from your peers, you'll do pretty much whatever you need to do to continue being affirmed in that way.
Yeah.
So that's why it's like, even with the little kids that come in and out of here, like I just go out of my way to affirm them for no reason.
Yeah.
Because even still to this day, as a grown man, I'm uncomfortable getting affirmed or getting praised or getting loved on in certain ways. You know what I mean? Me and my lady talk about it all the time, because it's like, I want to have no boundaries to our love with one another, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to have any space that ever makes me feel uncomfortable when loving on each other. But naturally, as black men that grew up being told that certain things, it's wrong to feel this, it's wrong to do this, it's wrong. You're basically unlearning all of those things and reprogramming it with something different. But that's not an overnight process. That process literally takes years. And you don't do it overnight, you do it through actions over and over and over again throughout like a period of time. And like, it's so important that they actually see us on that struggle. You know what I mean? So they know that we don't have it all figured out.
Yeah.
So when they're trying to figure out where their space is on that totem pole, what their role is in the continuum of this work, you know what I mean? Until we get our people fully free, where they have access to just as much of the American dream as anybody else, where they're not living in food deserts, you know what I mean? Being educated in schools with no resources and then sent out into a world not prepared for it, that doesn't want to receive it. You know what I mean? Like, if we're gonna address that, it's gonna have to be that long uphill battle.
That's right.
You know, and that's the thankless work. That's the stuff where like, yo, people will look at you every day and say, yo, good job, good job, good job. But they don't realize, like, bro, this is an everyday grind. You don't see half of what goes into making this stuff possible. But the more that they see it from us, and the more that they see that message spreading, the more they understand that eventually I gotta be on the right side of this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, with the national discussion about women, gender, all of these things, at a certain point I had to realize, yo, you're probably on the wrong side of this. You know what I mean? Go read some more black women, feminist writers, and reevaluate your perspective. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I think that it's important that we always hold ourselves accountable in that way, because we can be wrong. And usually when you're doing this work and you're trailblazing a path that never has existed before, you're going to make mistakes. If you catch them early enough and you don't allow them to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Say it again?
Metastasize.
Yes, yes. You don't allow that to grow into something worse. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You address it here and now. So I want a crew of people around me that whenever they see something that's problematic, hey man, you sure you want to say it like that?
Yeah.
Or you sure that that's how you should have got that done?
It's community, yeah.
That's family, that's community, and those are like the pillars that we have to be building around. Like,
Yeah.
one of the things that I think I love about Bell Hooks' work is that she constantly takes us back to that love ethos, that love ethic. If that's not present in our model, in our society, in our family, in our education system,
doing something wrong.
then we're lost. Yeah,
Yeah.
then we're doing something wrong. And we constantly have to be like evaluating the systems that we're a part of, the structures that we're creating, the organizations that we're building, because it's so easy for some oil to get into the tank and ruin the whole supply, you know. And you can build something really great, really amazing, and you can build it with the greatest of intentions, you know. But if you miss one part of the ideology or one part of the behavioral, you know what I mean, analysis and study, all of that stuff, it can be detrimental to everybody that believes in what you believe, everybody that follows along with this, everybody that takes this movement and feels like they themselves are a part of it.
Yeah.
Like, one of the things I love the most about, and we can start to close now, matter of fact, got a couple more questions and we'll close out, but it's a really great and beautiful thing to see what you've been able to build in a short period of time. You know what I mean?
It's a team effort, yeah.
No, all of you.
Yeah.
It's a collective, but I'm having a conversation with you right now,
Yeah,
so I have
I'm
to.
uncomfortable with information too.
Yeah, but it's important
Yeah.
because there's not enough people that see all that it entails. There's not enough people that understand what a large undertaking it is, you know, to truly be in a position where you're trying to serve so many people, you know, and you're trying to be a good steward of the position that a lot of people have you in. You know, I don't want to be up on nobody's pedestal, but I know that there are certain people that see a problem and say, oh, Aaron and them need to come fix that.
Yeah.
Where I'm trying to get it to is that when we see a problem and we see, oh, all of us need to get involved.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't want anybody to tell us that we like, yo, y'all over there digging some great holes. Look at those holes over there. The best hole diggers I've ever seen. Like, bruh, grab a shovel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Get down here, like, help us out.
Yeah.
But, and Matt, let's go. What were the last two questions?
Yeah. What does Tendea mean to Baltimore City?
Mm-hmm.
And what's one thing that Tendea has done that hasn't gotten enough praise yet?
You mind if I do that in reverse order? All right. Let me ask you this, bro. What's one thing that you guys have done, that Tendea has done, that you don't think receives enough attention? I don't think you want credit, but I think that, you know, at the end of the day, when they talk about activism, attention is currency, because when you get attention towards a problem or towards somebody trying to address a problem, that brings about a solution. So
Yeah.
what's something that you guys have done that you feel like should get more attention?
I think one of the greatest things that we've done that people don't really see is when they look at the Tendea Family, sometimes they say, man, they the people that do the community cleanups.
Mm-hmm.
When they look at Tendea Family, they see man to man, they do the men's talks, or they do the drawing boards, or they do the sisters dinners, or they do some event. I think the greatest thing that Tendea Family has done is that we've recruited and organized and mobilized regular black people that care about Baltimore City's black community, put them through a rites of passage process where they learn about their history, learn about the issues in Baltimore, and they have sacrificed smoking, sacrificed drinking, sacrificed having sex with people they're not in relationships with, sacrifice all these different things just to be a servant leader and a servant of their community. I think the greatest program in Tendea Family is the unseen program in Tendea Family. It's like, how do these people become members of Tendea Family? Because they sacrifice a whole lot. They up at 5 a.m. doing study classes, reading Taste the Power of Elaine Brown. We up at 5 in the morning sometimes working out, running to keep ourselves in shape. We praying at 7 a.m. or meditating at 7 a.m. We got prayer time. It's a whole lot of sacrifice that people do Regular black
So
people.
you guys do this virtually? You do it like y'all just pull up every
Virtually.
morning?
Virtually, in person,
Mhm.
it's all types of stuff. And so our meetings could be at midnight, and our meetings could also be at 5 a.m. And we have refinement reading every morning, where we read this book together. We read Taste the Power of Lane Brown, and discussing how is that applicable to our work today. And we putting in quotes and thinking about how we can make Tendea better.
Why that book?
Why
But-
Taste the Power?
And I've read it, so
Yeah.
I'm initiated, but I think that it's important. I'm always, I'm a huge book guy, so
Yeah.
why is it important for all of our people to read that book? And are there any other books that during that process, during that kind of, it's not a pledge process in a sense, but it's an awakening.
It's
you
the
know,
greatest.
so
It's the greatest. That's the greatest metaphor to use. If you ever joined a sorority or fraternity,
I'm in a
or
fraternity,
the
yeah, so
army,
like,
it's like
yeah,
that's
that
kind of like
position,
Tendea.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But Taste the Power. Before we read Taste the Power, we read the autobiography of Malcolm X. We done read Miseducation of the Negro. We done read Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow. But the reason we read Taste the Power now is because when we think about the work of the Black Panther Party, we wanted to center the voice of a woman and make sure that we understand the Black Panther Party from all the different perspectives that people take. But also, I think she do a great job of explaining the movement and its successes and its errors.
Yeah,
and it
it's a
helps
very
us.
realistic look.
Yeah.
Like she's not putting
It's not
anybody
like
up on pedestals or anything.
Yeah.
It's just like, yo, this is what we did. This is where we messed up. Like this is what it could have been. You know, like I think that it's really important.
And it's important for an organization like Tendea Family so that we don't make the same mistakes when they're telling you that don't go down that way, that was a mistake.
Yeah.
And so there's certain things and ways that Tendea operates is because of those examples that there's certain actions we make and there's certain actions we never make because of the wisdom of Elaine Brown in that book. But what I'm trying to say is that the greatest accomplishment of Tendea Family is that I don't think people give credit enough, is that we don't hire grant writers. We don't hire accountants. We didn't hire program managers. We train in-house people, regular black people off the street, to do all of those things. And now we're to the point where some of us are being paid a livable wage, working for the organization full time. But it took years to do that. But the point is that the program of joining Tendea Family, the program of pledging to the organization, is the most transformative process. We got people that were selling drugs before they joined Tendea Family. We got people that came from out of prison and said, man, I've been watching what y'all been doing. They shouldn't have had phones, but I've been watching what y'all been doing.
Yeah.
You know, when I get out, I'm coming to y'all and have transformed their lives. People that have been smoking Newports for 15 years that have quit, not because we have any formula, but because we say, do you really want to be an asset to your community and be a model for change? So I think the greatest process, the greatest accomplishment in Tendea Family is that we were able to do that, have a transformational process for regular black people that want to do the work and not be also a part of the problem that's out here.
Yeah.
So,
and that's something that personally is one of the things that I respect the most about y'all. Understanding that transformation. I think to look back at historical examples, I think that was the greatest thing Elijah Muhammad ever did.
yeah.
You know what I mean? What he was able to do in transforming the lives of incarcerated black men, getting them to look at themselves with dignity, respect, and honor. There's a lot of things that I might be able to beef with about what that man did in his life, but that right there is the blueprint.
It's beautiful.
You know what I'm saying? Put this book in the hands of every brother that is incarcerated, and that actually was one of the ideas for the tone that I used when I wrote Getting on Code. It's like, I need the brothers in the carceral state to be able to read this.
Yeah.
And I need them to be able to have these conversations. So that's when we started the donation. We got a program through Urban Reads Bookstore where you can donate my books to incarcerated individuals. And we do, they're pen pals with me. So they send in questions and, you know what I mean? We go, T is the intermediary between all of us. But we have to be able to find radical ways of getting into our juvenile justice system, getting into our prison system, and actually pouring into the brothers that are in there.
That's the truth.
You know what I'm saying? Because as black men, society has always found the most convenient ways to throw us away. You know what I mean? And when you get our people to adopt that mentality, we die.
Yeah.
Because the second black people start looking at our returning citizens and seeing the scum, I expect white America to do that. I expect the conservative women to do that. But the second we start doing that, we've lost.
Yeah.
We need to be pouring into these brothers and sisters. We need to be pouring into these kids. And that's something that, like, I've been supporting y'all for a long time. Just as soon as y'all told me that, all right, we about to start hiring kids. All right, bet, I'm sold.
Yeah,
I send my money every week.
You
know what I
didn't
mean?
miss a
Like,
payment. You didn't miss a
because
payment.
it's important, you know what I mean? And it's not the most money in the world, but at the end of the day, all of us should be
One
doing
job, yeah.
something.
That's right.
You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, people need to understand that you don't need to start your own organization. You know what I mean? You don't need to start your own foundation. You just need to be passionate enough to do the work, and you need to find the people who have already created these institutions and support them. So I got two more questions. One, for everybody that's watching this and that's, you know, they picking up what you putting down, and you speaking their language. How does one get involved with the Tendea family? I see that y'all are doing not an enrollment, but y'all are recruiting right now. So what does that process look like? How can they get involved?
So if you want to volunteer or come out to an event, any event that you see on Instagram, on Facebook, at Tendea Family, Tendea Family, you can come out. Community cleanup, man to man, sisters dinner, you can come out. If you want to join Tendea Family, I would recommend you come out to our Thursdays. About every other Thursday, we do an interest meeting, a recruitment session.
Where is that at?
This is at the UB Blake Center, around 6 p.m., 5 p.m. 5 p.m. every Thursday. And you come out and you learn more about what Tendea is actually about, so that you know before you jump in first, you know exactly what you're getting yourself into, because it's a major, major commitment. But we encourage everybody, whether it's not Tendea Family, whether it's this rec center, whether it's We Are Us, whether it's the Baltimore Peace Movement, whether it's some organization out here.
T out east.
Yeah. Yo, get volunteering. Get off the sideline, and if you can't because of work schedule and all that type of thing, the least you can do is donate. Donate to an organization of your choice to make sure that they're able to continue to do the great work that you see them doing. And if we all play our little part, whether it's by donating or feet on the ground, man, Baltimore City, you know, would be a better place right before we know it. Baltimore City on the rise anyway.
Absolutely.
You know, it's
Absolutely.
It's destined. So,
last question. What does Tendea Family mean to Baltimore?
I think that's still being written. I think that chapter is still being written, but I think it's an important continuation. When you see the red, black, and green flag when you come into a Tendea event, when you see us talking about Elaine Brown, anybody that's talking about Black Panther Party, Marcus Garvey, that type of stuff, they like 50s and up. And so every time Tendea is talking about this stuff, there's a revival of the energy of the 60s, of the energy of the 50s that we had. And I think what it means for young people that are all basically in our 20s talking like this is that, you know, it's back to what Fred Hampton said, that you can kill a revolutionary, but you can't kill a revolution. That this thing will continue to go on, and it'll keep being reborn in Black men and women until we eventually get to freedom.
My brother, we could do this all day, man. We could literally sit here all day and go back and forth. I love what you're doing. I love you. I love the organization. You know, definitely have my support. Continue to be a light. Continue to show people examples of what that change looks like. Be vigilant. Take care of yourself. Protect your peace and all of that. But thank you for giving me your time and energy.
Thank you, bro. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Man, this Getting On Code tour is going to be something different. Got to figure out how to get my people to come back together. Got to get us to stop arguing with one another and start focusing on solutions. How do you bring your people together when we're so divided? How do we get our people to cooperate when we're constantly going to war with one another? How do we bring about peace when all we ever known is war and violence? I don't got all the answers, but man,
gonna have to figure it out. We got to. There's no other option.